Welcome to the Brag Effect, where we share easy to understand customer service tips from business owners and leaders that will help you get your customers bragging about you in all the right ways. Hi, I'm Mike Wells, and together with my co-host Michelle Adams. Hey Michelle.
Hi Mike.
A big thanks for joining us.
Martin, so excited to have you on the show. I've been a massive fan of yours for a number of years now after seeing you. How many? Oh, gee, it must be 10 years ago now. Thank you very much for coming on the show.
Great pleasure.
Thank you. So, Martin, how would you define excellence in customer service today? And, is it more challenging for businesses in the digital era compared to what it was, say, 10 years ago?
Well, if you look at, what businesses do in terms of solving problems and making people feel good, it's obviously different in different industries. But generally, it's creating a positive and pleasant and good experience in terms of the selling of products and services, or the experience in the product and services. It's making sure there is follow-up and recognition of clients to obviously keep the relationship stable and keep them there as long as you possibly can, and offer. So if something goes wrong, it's the effective handling of that, so that even if there is a hiccup in the business relationship, that there will be the client walking away still with intention of doing business again around there. And those, I suppose, are the three different areas, where it comes up in customer service, and it's really up to the people to have the skills to deliver that service and do it well. When you look at the impact of the digital era, what the digital era is really, it's just made everything more immediate, than it used to be. Things used to be delivered in 3 weeks, now it's next day. And there's a change in expectation level in terms of the digital interactions around there. But unless it's a totally online business, there is still going to be a human interaction, or in some way, shape or form. And it is how, do we deliver our promises? Do we treat people with respect? Is there a nice rapport to the way we deal with people to make customers feel valued and hopefully return again and again?
I was talking to a CEO of a franchise group in the hospitality industry a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about reviews, and he said, quite often now customers are literally taking straight to their phones to place their review while they're sitting in the restaurant without even an opportunity to even fix the problem. So what do you say to businesses now? How do we ask for feedback before it gets to that point? What are we missing that the customers feel that they can't actually talk to us about what the problem is?
Okay, I think, look, if the fundamental understanding of customer service comes down to two things. It's creating empathy with the people you are dealing with and preserving their egos in terms of how you deal with them. Now, when an ego is crushed in that area, now that can be crushed because someone doesn't turn up on time, or food's bad in a restaurant, or whatever it is. Once the ego is crushed, the customer wants revenge. You have treated me badly, I want to get back at you. Do you know what I mean? To do that. The dimension of review sites and social media and stuff like that, now the consumer can take more revenge more easily and more powerfully than they ever could before, because a lot of these customer service things come down to, how do we preserve the ego of the client and treat them well? Now, when we don't, if I get bad service in a restaurant or whatever, well, now people are very to say, well, I know a way to punish you is not just not doing business with you or badmouth my friends, but if I put it on your Facebook page or put it on Yelp or put it, those areas, I have the chance to get a more powerful response, and people are much more motivated by negative experiences than positive experiences, so I'm much more likely to go on review sites when I'm angry than when I'm happy, although obviously people are encouraging people to give good reviews around that. How do we well, two things. How do we respond to that, and then how do we stop it happening? Respond to it is also understanding that when we are dealing with those situations, we again have to empathise and have some sort of understanding of ego preservation. And it's not a matter of proving the customer wrong, because a lot of times they do lie on reviews and social media. It's not a matter of proving them wrong. It's a matter of understanding their situation, showing some empathy and caring enough to solve the problems rather than working out who's right or wrong.
That's a really good point, and I just want to actually just flesh that out a little bit more, because so often when we get a negative review online, it's to a business owner, it's like a stab to the heart. You know, you're devastated because you pour all your heart, sweat, and tears into a business, you know, as well as financially, and then when you haven't lived up to expectations, it's disappointing. And so quite often, as a business owner, you know, or marketing manager, whoever is responsible for the reviews, you go into that defense mode. And so what you've just said is preserving the ego. And I kind of want to just talk about that for a minute. How do you do that with a customer that's not happy?
It's very simple. What I've been teaching in customer service is a lot of it is basic psychology and understanding the interaction of people. The challenge we have to do to deliver quality customer service in both adding value and also dealing with complaints is, one, to give up the need to be right for the greater good of the customer and the relationship with the company. You know, so what we have to do when someone is complaining, oh, you did this wrong, or all that, the natural response is a defense mechanism. No, I am wonderful. Do you know what I mean? This is the greatest business in the world, or I put my heart and soul into that. And that's what we need to let go to become the central response being the concern of the customer rather than defending our own professionalism. And this is such basic psychology. In fact, as a human being, psychologically, we are fundamentally, part of our innateness to believe we are right. If you come home as a parent, you see your kid drawing with crayons on the wall, and you catch them in the act, and you say, "Who did that?" And they go, "Not me, mummy." Do you know what I mean? That's basic psychology. And in fact, the younger your children are when they learn to lie, the more intelligent they are considered by psychologists, right? But the trouble is, when we get into a business environment, you know, that toddler becomes the waiter at the restaurant. I remember I went out with my wife a few years ago at this restaurant with another couple, and the waiter's taking drinks order, and I ordered a Coke, and the waiter said, "We don't have Coke, we have Pepsi." And I said, "That's fine." And I was telling my friends from our marketing days, Pepsi used to beat Coke on blame product tests, and most people couldn't tell the difference anyway. Well, the waiter, who was, I don't know, in his 20s, said to me, "Well, that may have been run at the past, sir, but now Coke beats Pepsi regularly, and a lot of people can't tell the difference." Rack off. Do you know what I mean? Now,
he was trying to prove you wrong.
He was defending. His job was to make sure everything was correct and whatever. And it's like when I said something, his job is to pull me out. No, his job is to enjoy it, make sure I have a fun time at the restaurant, not to tell me I'm talking through my hat when I'm talking through my hat, even if I am wrong, you know, to do that. Now, here's the issue. That's a guy who's not been trained in customer service, you know, and the challenge we face in delivery of service and in business, if you're in a sales customer service, you give up ego for money. You know, you make other people feel good and they pay you. You know, that's what it is. And if our egos are fighting and we are proving the other person wrong, okay, you may win the battle and I'll prove, oh, you know, you're right, maybe I was wrong. Who loses? The restaurant, because I don't come back. You know, and the challenge to do this, and this is what's sadly, and I've been speaking on customer service for 30 years, and I don't think it's any better now in the marketplace than it was 30 years ago. You know, because it is fundamentally not a truism and not fully understand, because a lot of the stuff we're talking about technically counterintuitive. You know, when you tell people to give up the need to be right for the good of their business. You know, the person who says, "I am the greatest builder in the world," or doesn't want to give up the need to be right. They want to, when you say to me, "You've done something wrong," the first natural response is a defense mechanism. Let me tell you why I'm wonderful, not why you are wrong to say I'm not wonderful. And what we have to do is you've got to teach people to let that go so that the concern is genuinely for the customer rather than covering our own backside, you know, in that area. Now, every once in a while, if a customer is so absolutely hideous and whatever, well, we get rid of that customer, right? But most times, you know, all the customer want is concern, acknowledgement, recognition, validated, you know, in terms of the interaction of the relationship. And the right and wrong is only important if it gets sued.
Yes. Yeah, I understand. And so in that example where you talk about, you know, where you have got staff that are trained in how to give that excellence in customer service, often you might see it coming across not as authentic because it feels a bit fake, like a bit patronizing, I guess, in some sense. So how do you teach companies in terms of to train their staff, especially in the, on the front line, on how to be authentic and genuinely care about the customers?
Okay. Firstly, you cannot legislate care. You just can't legislate. You can't make people who don't care. You just can't. Right? Firstly, hire people on attitude rather than skills, right? But the issue is why training traditionally fails is people are told what to do instead of why it makes sense. Now, if you keep telling me what to do, I'll do it till you're not looking. But if you get people to understand why it makes sense, or the way I try and do it, and the only way I find training works is you get people in an interactive environment and you get them to talk about the times that things have irritated them from a customer's perspective, and everyone's got plenty of stories of how badly they've been treated. Then what you do is you turn it around and you say, look, the things that irritate you are the same things that irritate your customers. But if you understand through the creation of empathy and the preservation of ego and some basic skills, what you have to do is understand that when they are in a buying situation, right, your job is to do everything you can to revolve and make it easier for them rather than them fitting in with you. And if you didn't like waiting 10 minutes to be served at David Jones, well, maybe they're not going to be thrilled about waiting 30 seconds for you to serve them, in that area. And it's a bit of empathy and understanding, and also the basic skills. I cannot believe that in 2019 we've got to teach people empathy, but we do, and we need to do that area. So you've got to give people the skills, and you've got to give them the comfort of, obviously, management support. Do you know what I mean? Because it's really important that, we nurture people, because if they're afraid of getting yelled at if they do something wrong, and they're more worried about pleasing their boss than pleasing the customers, and I see that in a lot of organisations, around there, you've got to have a commitment to delivering a level of service, of sales, of expertise that is of a high standard out there. And the fact is, the bar is pretty low, if you look at service out there. So you don't have to be super fantastic to be better than most people out there. You've just got to have the inclination and the intention to do it, which means hire people who are malleable and predisposed and have a nice attitude to life and are good at dealing with people. And every once in a while you find a person who shouldn't. These people are not born to come into contact with others. Doctors like that should be pathologists. They should work in a lab, not interact with patients, around there. And again, you are as good as the people you're hiring in your business. So it's extremely important to have that culture, have that understanding, get them to understand and then deliver it.
So that leads into the next question I wanted to ask you around going over and beyond. And so I think that it's really important now that it's not just delivering on our promise as an organisation to our customer. It's what are the things that we can do to excel and go over and beyond so that the customer feels valued. And, once you've built that customer where they feel valued, they're a loyal customer, they become a friend of the business, and friends tell friends. And we know how important social proof is today in business. So what are some of the ways, and I'll always remember the Lexus CD story that you shared with my corporate team, over 10 years ago. What are some of the ways that companies can do that? And maybe you can talk about the Lexus CD
let me
story.
talk to the
Do you still share that?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it explained customer. A lady told me the story in the night. It explained. I've been trying to explain customer service for years. She did it in 30 seconds. Ladies tell me she was test driving a Lexus. While test driving the car, the salesperson asked her a lot of questions, some relevant, some irrelevant. One of them was, what type of music do you like? She didn't give it any more thought till she took delivery of the car, and sitting on the front seat of the car were $200 worth of CDs in her favourite music. It was about 6 months after she brought the cover to the workshop, and I asked her, I said, how many people you told about the CD? She said, about 100. I said, how many people you told about the car? She said, no one initially, but every person I told about the CDs wanted to know what car it was, and I told 100 people how happy I was with my Lexus and where I bought it. And the metaphor I bring out there is, what are the CDs with your Lexus? Everybody has a level of expectation, but that's the kind of stuff when you do exceed expectations and go over and above, and there's hundreds of examples of ways of doing it there. But not only is that good for getting the loyalty of that person, you get the word of mouth factor of people talking about the CDs, and then they ask them. So if I'm going to a dinner party with people, I can't tell everybody, oh, everybody, I got a new car because I look like a wanker, right? But if I tell people the CD story, then they ask about the car, and then I can talk about the car, and I'm virtually doing an advert for the person who sold me the car to all those people there.
Yeah.
And when you're looking at extending customer service to the recognition and client loyalty area, not only do we need to exceed their expectations in the way we deal with them, we also need to exceed their expectations in the way we recognise them and thank them for our business. And if we want them to be not just an ongoing customer, but hopefully a referrer of our services to other people, that comes from the CDs, not the Lexus.
And not branded.
And not branded, yes, no.
And you see that so many times.
Yeah.
Here's a branded mug.
Look,
so that you're top of mind when
Yeah.
your mug's sitting on your desk
Well,
or whatever it might
interestingly
be.
enough, I've done a bit of work with the promotional products industry and whatever. In some respects, I'm not their friend, because what I'm saying is the brand name is important up to the point of sale. After the sale, people are loyal to people, not companies, which means the power of the CD Lexus story is that they came in her favourite music because he'd listened, and there was no string attached. It wasn't promoting Lexus. It was me saying thank you to you,
Yes.
not here is a way to advertise my brand. And I believe after the sale, the brand name being shoved down the throat actually stops people from giving referral business, when you actually want to make them feel, in some respects, obligated to tell people how wonderful you are. I reckon if they would have had, the CDs, Lexus brand all over the CDs, she's much less likely to tell the story, because it's like, well, they've sort of paid for that by doing advertising for them.
Yes.
And a lot of this in business is nothing more than understanding human behaviour. It's not, rocket science and marketing strategy. It's understanding how humans make purchase decisions and modifying the things we do and the way we do them to fit in ways that are going to impress them, rather than necessarily what would suit us. Because fundamentally, people are different. It's up to us to change and fit in with the customer and do whatever we can around that. And I've tried to get a lot of the companies I work with, the metaphor of CDs with a Lexus becomes vernacular within the company, to do that. So we're saying, well, what are the CDs with the Lexus there?
Yeah.
And I've seen it in literally, hundreds of industries. For example, an optometrist I was working with has a friend who owns a bookshop. So every time he sells a pair of reading glasses for the first time, he sends out a little thank you note on a paperback novel that he gets $5 wholesale from his mate. He says he gets, on the card says, thanks for buying your specs. By the way, here's a book so you can enjoy reading with your new glasses for the first time. He reckons he gets more word of mouth referrals from the $5 book, and they all come in and spend $700 on frames. But the competitor's going, buy one, get one free.
Yes.
Which is decimating the profits in the industry.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying is we have to find, the CDs of the Lexus, we have to find the skills and ways of adding value and delivering a positive customer experience, or dealing with the complaint in a way that lets the customer walk away with their ego intact. If we do that, then we're running a customer service and customer-centric business that should end up getting more business based on word of mouth than advertising. I say to my clients, I wish you took some of the money you spend on promotion and put that on CDs and just recognition for existing clients, and see the return on investment rather than just bribing new people to do business with you all the time.
Yeah. And so many businesses are spending so much money, thousands of dollars on their marketing budgets to generate new business for them, every year. But what happens is that they have no customer retention strategies.
Absolutely.
And so all these new clients are falling through the holes in the bucket.
Yeah.
And so placing that value and having, objectives for the business that are customer centric around retention and loyalty of the business. The Lexus CD stories are a great way to do that at that, at the point of sale.
Yep.
What are some other ways that you can continue to nurture the client?
Okay. Look, on a very simple level, the biggest companies in this country and the world get it wrong in terms of they say they care about their existing customers and they're loyal to them. In fact, they're immensely disloyal to them, right? Like, for example, if you take the phone companies, the energy companies, whatever it is out there, you can get a better deal as a new customer than you can as an existing customer.
Yes,
right?
That's happened to me.
And it's happened to everybody. What happens is you ring up and you say, well, hang on a second, you're advertising 30% off to people who've never done business with you. I've been a regular customer for these years. How come I'm paying more than the new customers? And they say, well, that's the system, that's what we do. So what some people do is they either cancel the thing and then come back again as a new customer, as stupid as that is, right? But in a lot of cases, they say, well, hang on a second. If this is how little you think of me, I'd rather go to your competitor. The trouble is a lot of the competitors are just as bad, at this. And the simple element is, if those customers, instead of having to go so very deep to get, those new customers, who, if you think about it, are going to be disloyal anyway, because if I'm coming to you for 30% off, surely I'm going to go to your competitor as soon as he or she offers the 30% off. It's not a good long-term strategy anyway, right? And if they could do more into providing a positive experience and getting the recognition side out. Now, the only difference between recognition and bribery is where it happens in the sales process. If you give me a discount, that's a bribe, right? If you give me some CDs, that's recognition, right? Recognition is cheaper than bribery. Instead of giving me 30% off to change energy companies, if my existing energy company said, well, you've been a good customer for years, here, have a couple of tickets and move, it's just our way of saying thanks. Do you know what I mean? To do that, all right, you'd probably get more loyalty out of doing it after the sale at less expense, rather than everything has to be discount and bribe oriented.
But aren't we now conditioned to the sale? To the sale at, with the discounts?
But not only...
Every store now, gone are the days of the Boxing Day sale and that was it. Every month of the year has a sale on the window.
But the conditioning has actually desensitized us. Like I remember, 25 years ago, if you had a 10% off sale, people would come. Well, now you can have a 40% off sale and people will go ho-hum because they're so used to it. So not only is it not a great, not the greatest strategy, but you have to do so much more in terms of the discounting to get people's attention than you did years ago.
And touch points too, it used to be 7 touch points to make a sale, a buying decision. Now it's 13, and they say by 2020 it's meant to be 20 touch points. Well, it's getting harder to get eyeballs on. But
you can appreciate desensitization. When I am hit with so much marketing information or whatever, whether it be online or face-to-face or walking to a shopping mall or whatever it is, it's so much harder to cut through than it ever was. And that obviously is right. It's increasing. The amount of marketing information we're getting in terms of trying to get us to buy things is just increasing and increasing and increasing. But the interesting area is, I don't think the CD Lexus area, that area, is not massively increasing. The clever ones are doing it and doing it nicely, but most people are seeing bribery is the only way to get it. For example, the coffee industry. Absolutely massively booming industry, out there, and actually still not plateauing, around there. Almost every cafe has a loyalty card. Do you know what I mean? You get your 10th one free, or your 7th one free, or your 5th one free. Now, the interesting thing I find is this. I used to go a place about 15 minutes away from me where I get a coffee. The guy would always ask me about my kids, chatting and stuff like that and whatever, and made a good cup of coffee and was all nice to me. I didn't really need the loyalty card to go back because I'm coming for the experience of, and that person makes you feel comfortable, recognition, knows Maria Galorda, all that sort of thing like that. Now, I would keep going, and he had, but I didn't need the loyalty card. Now, when he left, and he left one day, and was replaced by someone else who didn't ask me about what's going on in my life, and didn't build rapport, didn't have any recognition, took a while to remember, and I stopped going there, right? Now, they might have thought I stopped going there because maybe they put the prices up. Well, they didn't, around there. And I'm saying to coffee, salespeople there, to people in that industry, build the rapport, get the service right, build that sort of thing. And you don't need, why would you want to give every 5th coffee free or every 7th coffee free? If these people are coming to you anyway, why do you want to give 15% of your revenue back to the people who would come to you anyway if you added value and customer service and built the rapport?
So it's the Cheers TV show, where everyone knows your name.
That's exactly right. And the interesting thing is that never changes. Technology changes, but people stay, but they want to belong, want recognition, want to have a good experience, around there. And unfortunately, you can go to some places where, and I think it's acceptable at a place like McDonald's or something like that, they're not going to get to know your name. You don't expect that from that sort of area. But, I find it amazing that McDonald's is charging the same price for coffee that most coffee outlets are charging. Yet the experience should be chosen short. And I believe the thing is you can get higher prices in that sort of area as long as you're doing more than just providing a cup of coffee, which is seen as a commodity. There's got to be more to it.
But could you argue though that there is certainly enough people out there who are price driven, who are just purely driven by the price, and don't want to interact with someone to.
Yeah. And you know what? The beauty of it is you have to be flexible. If you're building rapport with someone and they say, just give them the coffee.
Yeah.
People are different. But you don't blame, and as I say, from many years in this industry, I can tell you approximately 20% of the market are price shoppers. 20 people would spend $10 on petrol to save $5 at the supermarket, right? That's that. And they're never going to change. But that's not the majority of the marketplace. The majority of the marketplace, if you provide a proper service and you treat them with respect and you add value and stuff like that, will pay a little bit more. How much more will depend on their individual and what they value the service and whatever. But it is a myth to say that because everybody wants it cheaper, I have to do the loyalty program, I've got to offer the cheapest rock price and license, I've got to do all those sort of things to survive.
And lose that human element.
Absolutely. And that's what is missing. It's very interesting, with the impact of online selling. I remember back in the 80s, there was talk that multi-level marketing would wipe out retail. The strength of Amway and all these, because what happens is this was starting to become big in the marketplace and people say, people aren't going to go to shopping anymore, they're going to have party plan and whatever. But what they didn't realise is shopping is a social experience. It's a human social experience, and that's not going to, going to change. People still want to interact with people, and the malls are full for for all kinds of reasons, and to do that. If I'm not getting, and it was interesting there, if I'm not getting good service when I go into shopping malls or ways like shopping, then I may as well get a party plan. And I'm seeing the same analogy with online. A lot of retailers are saying, online is a threat to my business and it's going to, people don't want to shop in stores anymore. No, online's not a threat to your business. You're a threat to your business. If you're not providing a quality experience and, people go to major department stores, have to wait 10 minutes to get served, forget it. I'm not going to put that. I'll buy it online. If I'm not getting a positive experience and treated well in that area, well, then I may as well go online. And I see an underserving in that market because, people ask me, what's the positive side? And I say, look, I have had, when I do interactive workshops and people tell me they're crappy customer service, almost every time I get someone, I'm sitting at Myers and I have to wait 10 minutes and no one would serve me. And I said, have you ever walked into an Apple store? There's nerds everywhere. Do you know what I mean?
And you're often waiting longer than
that. But you know what? But you're all looked after. There's There's never an empty Apple store with no staff to serve you.
You're always greeted with a smile at the front door.
Look, I tell you, fantastic. I wish I could praise an Australian company rather than Apple, but the service there is fantastic. I know from my own experience, I was buying some MacBooks for my kids a few years ago when they were teenagers. I watched this kid in his 20s who was he not only did he empathise with them, he didn't make me feel like an idiot. Do you know what I mean? As I was there with things like we spent $7,000 and it was a great experience. My wife drops her iPhone, falls down the toilet, she goes in there and not even up. Well, have another iPhone. Not make her feel stupid or have another, had it X months ago, have another iPhone. Why? They get it right.
Yes.
Apple's the most profitable company in the world, and you see the department stores going down. Who's got it right and who's got it wrong?
And that's an online business, effectively.
Absolutely.
So how can we learn from that?
Well, the simple thing to learn from that, even though Apple is very much presence on the internet there, when you're looking at what works there is those people are trained in people skills as much as they're trained in technology. They're all geniuses, and they are geniuses there. But you don't find many of them there who are so aloof and uncomfortable dealing with people, and they make you feel, especially as someone who's out of the demographic, do you know what I mean? So I know I'm an idiot when I walk into to an Apple store, but I'm never made to feel like one. There's enough person who can empathise enough with me to understand that I do not want a full understanding of the technology because I can't comprehend it. All I want is an easy sales experience. And this is what they've got right. Yeah. Around there. And I tell you what, I wish I could praise 1,000 Australian companies, around there. But I don't see too much going on out there in this area. It's like the battle has to be on technology or price or anything like that. And I think, okay, I'm saying the product is important and the price is important. But I still think the determining factor in terms of revenue or success of business is how we treat our customers. And do we give them reasons to come back? Do we treat them with loyalty? Do we treat them and make them feel good or stupid when something goes wrong? Those are the things that determine success and loyalty in the marketplace.
And so post-sale, one of the services and where we at Aura help businesses manage their reviews is not only what we're finding now is that a lot of companies are very reactive to problems that come up, whether it's with negative reviews as an example. What are some of the ways that companies can be proactive and asking for the feedback from the customer before it gets to that point where they do take to online or
Okay. I think when we get it right, if you look at the mentality of the CDs with the Lexus, firstly, when you've done something of beyond expectations and done something and really run the way, that person feels, well, that's really nice. What can I do for you in return? Do you know what I mean? And of course, referral business, whatever. I believe you've got a much better chance of getting a 5-star Google review when you've done some CDs with the Lexus and you've exceeded their expectations and stuff like that. And they say, oh, this is really wonderful. And you actually say, look, your review is really important to me. This is the lifeblood of my business. I believe you got to give before you take. I think doing a good job is not enough to expect a 5-star review. I think people have expectation levels out there. But if you make it a great experience, you treat people well, you get some CDs with Lexus, you do things that's beyond their expectations in that area, and they're sort of saying, well, how can I help you in return? Well, sometimes it's saying, those reviews mean a lot to us. TripAdvisor changed the world. It changed the world in that it changed the fundament of how people are making decisions. What happens post TripAdvisor is what the marketplace is saying. I no longer believe the seller, I want to talk to the buyer. If you think about how we conducted travel 15 years ago, you go to the travel agent, have a whole lot of brochures, and based on the brochures and the websites, you decide where you go. Now you don't even go to the hotel's websites, you go to TripAdvisor and you make your decision on what people said about the venue rather than what the company said promoting it.
Yes. So there's a complete lack of trust already before.
But that's heightened by people's negative experiences. You know what? The brochure said it was a wonderful hotel. It wasn't a wonderful hotel. Well, now I'm going to look at what people say before. I'm more likely to believe another customer than someone with a vested interest in selling to me. That is now becoming much more widespread. And even though TripAdvisor is the best example of an industry-based review site that's gone on, I believe medium to long term, almost every large industry will have a TripAdvisor and stuff like that. But until then, we've got the Google reviews, we've got Facebook, we've got all these sort of review sites that are becoming actually significant in the purchase decision.
Yes.
Of consumers. So it's not just a review.
Yeah.
It's not just a review thing. This is actually how some people are making decisions. Yeah. We got some Uber Eats the other night and saying to the kids, right, there's 50 restaurants. Who you say? You go to the one that has the best reviews. Go to a 4.6, reviews. So that's how people are actually making decisions, not just millennials. This is how people are making decisions. So businesses have to understand this. So what we've got to understand is how we deal with those reviews and how we get those reviews to do it. The best way to get 5-star reviews is to exceed expectation in the experience. And sometimes it's nice to say to clients, what would really help us is a review, to do that. The best advertisement I get, if you look at how Australians are, you can read 40 5-star reviews and 2 1-star, you're going to read the 2 1-star reviews. It's just a normal behaviour. I have business saying, what can I do to insure against that? And I said, look, if you have 3 good reviews and 2 bad reviews, you're in trouble. If you have 503 good reviews and 2 bad reviews, you can survive that.
Mm. But it's also how you respond to that review is, so the potential customers out there, the market, are reading how a company does respond to positive and negative reviews. Yep. You know, we see it quite often where companies, you know, that you see the 5-star reviews, there's no acknowledgement, but then there's a 1-star review and they're all over it. And so it's thanking them, acknowledging, you know, for the feedback. But also how you address that negative review, and not just the standard, thanks very much for your feedback. Your feedback's very important to us. It's we want to make sure that we exceed expectations on every level. We're sorry we've disappointed you in this at this time. How can we make it up to you? How can we contact you so that we can make it right? And so my partner and I were just recently in Europe, and we're in Italy, and we were in Cinque Terre and looking for an experience, a cruise, like a sunset cruise. Yes. And so we were on TripAdvisor, looked through, you know, all of the different options. We looked at the reviews. The one that had the best reviews was the one that we chose. And we actually interviewed the owner of the business. And the experience that he gave us was exceptional. And so he lived up to that expectation. He made that experience so enjoyable for us. I don't even think we were even looking at the scenery. We were so engaged with him because he was entertaining. He cared about us and was asking questions and where we were from and telling stories, and he was just really entertaining. And so, you know, that the human element of the experience makes or break a company these days, even if it's online. I think that's really important.
100%. The how to deal with is important. A lot of people don't understand how to deal with it, just psychologically, and how you do it from a customer service. When people complain, they want 3 things. 1, they want to whinge. They want acknowledgement of their inconvenience. And this is where most people get it wrong. You know, they want acknowledgement of their inconvenience rather than a fight over who's right or wrong, and they want you to fix the problem. The most missing part is the acknowledgement. When someone says to you, I had a bad experience dealing with your business, if you say, but my business has a 99% customer service, or give them all the reasons defending yourself, they're just going to get angrier and angrier and angrier. When someone wants that situation, and applies much to online, when someone says, you know, I waited 4 hours for a tradesman to turn up and he didn't turn up, the first thing they want to hear is, I'm terribly sorry. I appreciate your time is valuable and we feel terrible that we wasted it. You know, in that area.
How can I make it up to?
Yeah, and then how can I make it? But unless you acknowledge that you've listened to what they've said, rather than give them some slick phrases as you see on so many review websites. You know what I mean? It's like, standard phrase number 4 or whatever. You know, you can see when you look, cut and paste.
Yes.
Then there. The other thing I say to my clients in terms of when they're dealing with online things like that, take it offline. When someone says, you were terrible at the cafe and it was dirty and food and stuff like that, you say, first thing, look, I'm really concerned about what you say. I'd like to buy you a cup of coffee and listen to you. Can I contact you offline to set this up? Now, most people won't turn up for the cup of coffee. But if you think of how someone reads that, someone reading from outside says, the owner says, oh, look, I listened to what you say. I'm really distressed about this. Can I buy you a coffee so we can talk about it? Even if there's no other correspondence there, at least reading it at least it comes across as an owner who cares about how his customers feel, you know, in the business there. And too often I see it's a debate over the facts. I don't think the facts are important.
No.
You know? No. And people embellish and lie. You might have bad service in a restaurant where you're waiting 20 minutes. Well, the third time you tell the story, you're waiting 40 minutes. And the fifth time you tell the story, they attack you with an axe. You know, and that's what you write on Facebook or whatever it is out there. Now, the owner of the business has no control over that, right? But the way you pacify the person who's angry is to say, I understand why you're angry. Not, let me tell you why you're wrong. And when business gets that right, and it's not a hard thing to learn, and it's not a hard thing to do. It's a matter of taking your ego out of the equation. Because what you said earlier is right. When I get negative review, that's an assault to my ego. And no one insults me because I am fantastic at what I do. And that's the wrong attitude.
Yeah.
The customer's ego has to be more important than the person selling.
And what you said is key, just get it offline and try and have that human interaction, because, we're
But
always...
you can turn them into advocates. Those people, when you do take it offline, again, because they're not expecting someone to treat them with that sort of respect, those people can actually then go back, and I've seen a lot of reviews where after it's been dealt with properly, that person actually becomes an advocate and gives a positive thing afterwards. And I actually think sometimes that's better for your business, to not just recover from a negative view, but then have a customer say, after you dealt with that, I am really impressed with you. Or the person says, please come back to the restaurant at my expense. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. No one should have to go through that. You can actually sometimes get some positive word of mouth out of the negative spirits if you handle it properly.
Yeah, absolutely. Love that. So, we know that success to a board, a CEO or management team is ultimately hitting revenue goals. I love Simon Sinek's book, Leaders Eat Last. And his message is that, when you care about your staff take care of your customers, and your customers take care of the bottom line. What's your view on how customer service can play a part in reaching revenue goals when we're talking to CEOs?
I agree totally. I think the way you can't have a break in terms of the way you treat customers and the way you treat your staff. If you treat your customers well and you treat your staff badly, I haven't seen too many successful businesses, work that way. There has to be some sort of consistency. And I believe the bosses have got to see the staff as their customers in terms of making them feel good and creating culture where they feel recognised and validated and all that sort of thing to give that positive experience out there. There's got to be elimination of the hypocrisy, around that. The interesting thing I think a lot of businesses don't understand is I believe your staff's perceptions are more important to the success of your business than your customers' perceptions, because whereas the customers come in contact with you once, those staff members interact with a lot of customers. And the revenge thing doesn't change. If the bosses treat the staff badly and crush their egos, they get their revenge by treating the customers badly, and a lot of times the boss doesn't even know why it's happening. And I see a lot of organisations, and I'll give you a classic example. I obviously won't name the company. I was working with an accounting firm, and they were saying, we can't get our accountants to give great customer service. Can you come in and work out? Well, so we ran a seminar customer service, and I was talking to them things like about CDs and Lex. And I was saying things like, it's nice to speak to your clients, not just when you're taking money from them. It's nice to build a relationship and say, look, I appreciate what you're going through in business. Can we have a chat, have a cup of coffee? Except the bosses wouldn't let them do that because that's not billable hours. Right? So the staff genuinely wanted to give good customer service, but they were not allowed to give because they would have been penalised for doing stuff. So I went back to the bosses and said, they're not the problem, you're the problem. And they threw me out because they didn't want to hear that, to do that. But I see that a lot. The bosses tell the staff to do one thing and they act in a completely different way. And then they wonder why they're not getting a response, out of their staff. And you've also got to have objectives, fitting in. The staff need also recognition and validation in that area. I remember I once went to pick up a pizza at Bondi Beach on a Tuesday night, and the place was pretty full. And I said to the kid who was giving me the takeaway pizza, I said, gee, I tell you what, you guys are doing pretty good for a Tuesday night. He said, mate, you should have been here yesterday. We were full from 7:30 till 9:30. And I said, well, I hope you're getting paid on commission. He said, mate, I get paid the same whether the place is full or empty. I'm happy when the place is empty. I wonder if the boss knows that, okay, we can laugh at that, but do you know what? I see a lot of businesses that operate that way. And, the objectives of the frontline people are very different from the objectives of the senior management in that area. And it's like with the accounting company. The senior management wants to find the reason why they're not doing it, unless they're the reason, and then they don't want to know. So I spend my life as a provocateur and satirist and try and make people uncomfortable with that sort of status quo, because it's only when you do that that you can actually change their behaviour and see things happening. And sadly, the bar, as I say, is not very high.
No.
And it should be.
No. And I think so that, serving the internal customer becomes, and culture in an organisation becomes such an important part in customer service. And we had an example where at Aura we were working with a client last year, and as part of the assessment before we met with them, a lot of the negative reviews were actually coming up on page 1 of Google from staff. So there's review sites now, like Seek and Indeed here in Australia, that actually have reviews that are coming from previous staff members. And so one of the recommendations we had was to look at the culture of the business and treat your internal customers as customers, just as important, if not more important, than your external customers. And one of the things that we suggested was that they implement exit interviews with their staff that were leaving. And that had such a positive effect because, one, they got the feedback, obviously, from the staff that were leaving the organisation on ways that they could improve. And two, that staff member felt heard. So they then weren't taking to online to place their reviews and feedback. So, I think that things like, mentoring and career pathways and rewards and acknowledgement, can play such an important part in culture and supporting our internal customers. So in delivering excellence, I think it's really important for CEOs and boards and management teams to have culture and our internal customers just as important in terms of business objectives and goals that impact bottom line revenue. But sometimes it's not seen as sexy. And, how do you report that to shareholders? We're going to take the staff, on an amazing holiday this year. It's expensive. What's the impact? How's that going to drive revenue? So it's recognizing things like this that make it's making your internal customer feel like they belong to a tribe, because that's how we operate. We want to feel valued. We want to belong to a tribe, and things like this is ways that obviously we can do that help grow the business and do have an impact on revenue.
I think that's a really important point. And I've seen a lot of corporations who say they have a wonderful culture, and their staff will tell you that's a lie. Around there, I do very little work with internal customers. Why? Because there's not a lot of demand for it, and there should be more demand for it. I've had one CFO who's taken me to 3 different corporations, right? He's now the CFO of a reasonably large corporation, and he said, what we need to do is we need to work on the skills of the finance department to interact with the other departments around there. Because the same things happen as far as revenge is concerned, only this affects the external clients when there's bickering internally out there. Like, for example, we're saying things like, they didn't get the figures to us in time for the review and we were made to look bad in front of the executive leadership team. Or when they are right and the other person is wrong, well, they'll copy everybody on the email so that everybody knows that person was wrong. But what they don't realise is, that person wants to take revenge next time. So what happens is that's exactly what happens. And what happens is they say, you dropped me in and I'm going to make sure I sabotage you. This is just the people. So I had the pleasure of working with the finance department, the different people within the finance department, and say, look, it's not fair and they should treat you with respect, but we need to have a customer service culture in that area. We need not just to solve the problems, get the figures right, we need to be able to interact and preserve the egos of the other people, even when they're wrong, because in most companies, finance is always right, so all I'm saying is we got them to understand from actually seeing how they felt as consumers when it happened to them, and a lot of them said, I didn't even realise I was doing that. But it was never an initiative within the company, and I believe it's like a relationship. If both people thinking they're giving more than 50%, the relationship tends to work. But if they're both on the other sides, they're not. Now, as opposed to the external environment where the customer's got the money and that's why you suck up and are nice to them, right? Internally, there should be mutual respect. But there isn't always mutual respect. And I'm saying, even if we're dealing with internal people who have the same level of positional power, so I really can't order them to do things, in that area, I believe we still need to have a customer service culture that makes the internal customers feel valued and recognised. And, every once in a while it's nice to thank them when they got the figures to you on time rather than just yelling at them when they don't. And I believe this has effects onto the external customers, because if things are delayed or something happens, the external customer doesn't care about the internal squabble. All they care about is whether they've been satisfied, and if they're not, they want to take revenge. So I'd love to see more companies understanding that very important point you made about the internal customer, in some respects being just as important as the external customer.
Yeah, absolutely. So as consumers now, are we spoilt for choice? Are we more fickle than what we used to be when it comes to our buying decisions?
Yeah, I think we're more cynical. I see the consumer being more cynical because promises are made and not kept. And what happens in a lot of industries, it's we go to the biggest promise and then we get disappointed when it doesn't live up, to expect. So the consumer is cynical. If you look at how politics works, we don't believe anything politicians say, so we go for the biggest bribes, knowing they probably won't deliver it anyway. Do you know what I mean? And that's what happens. So it becomes a promise, who's going to give the most thing, and then a lot of things don't go through. But if you don't believe anyone, you go to the biggest bribe, to do that. And I think a lot of that happens in the business environment as well. The difference now, and I can't say enough, the difference now is the consumer has more power than ever. So the consumer is cynical, which means, well, I'm not going to go to your website. I'm going to go to TripAdvisor because they'll tell me the truth and I don't think you will. So the consumer is becoming more cynical, but through reviews and through a lot of things, we are now having ways of the reality coming across rather than the promotion and all the magic that every company promises they'll do. Every builder says, I'm going to be the best builder, I'll build on time. Well, according to your reviews, your customers hate you. So that is now more powerful. The more we read stories, and one of the things I do when I get briefed to go to a conference, I go to the Google reviews, of the company I'm working for, the industry I'm working. And there are some industries that are just horrible. Do you know what I mean? You cannot believe these people stay in business with the level of reviews they're getting out there, So what we need to understand is, once you have been treated badly as a one-star reviewer, you're much more suspicious of promises other people make you, to do that. So I need validation. So I need guarantees, I need testimonials, I need reviews. It is harder. The consumer, I believe, is becoming more cynical to do it, less likely to believe, what is promised to them. And it's almost like, I want you to take the risk. Why do I, have to take the risk? And I believe reviews and testimony, they're risk reducers. There's not a promise of perfection, and I appreciate some reviews are shonky and whatever out there, but that reduces the risk. The fact that you've made 10 other people happy makes me a little bit more comfortable than if you've made 10 people miserable, around there. So I think I'm all for this. I have no sympathy for businesses who treat their customers badly. I'm not a consumer advocate, but I have no trouble with seeing 5-star reviews going to 1-star reviews and businesses going out of businesses because of their customers' feedback. I think that's wonderful. Do you know what I mean? Because what you want is the good companies to be able to charge more. And this is what I'm seeing happening, but not enough. The good companies should be able to charge premium prices for their services because of the satisfaction they have delivered in the past. I find it staggering. Take the McDonald's. I find it staggering that McDonald's charges the same experience to the cafe down the road where the guy gets to know my name, builds rapport, has a nice thing like that. Well, why isn't that guy charging $1 more or $1.50 more to do it? Because I believe that's the return on investment of providing the quality service out there in the marketplace. I see a lot of the review sites having it, but what I do see is a lot of businesses are afraid to raise their prices because they think they won't get it. And I think they, a lot of times, are the architects of their own struggles in business, because what they do is they give champagne service at soda water prices and then wonder why the customers adore them, but they don't make a lot of money because they're afraid of the competitor, undercutting them or everything there, when the competitor's not really a competitor because the experience is cheese and chalk. And if they had faith in their ability, and some of the things I say to business owners is, sometimes when you're feeling down, read your own testimonials, read your reviews. Sometimes you don't realise how good you are. sometimes those reviews are a nice internal motivator when everyone's saying what a wonderful business you are. Well, why aren't I putting my prices up 10%? Because those people are not going to leave me to do that. So I spend a lot of my life irritating my clients to raise the prices and provide the service and doing those sort of things. And the only thing that stands between them is their own self-esteem and their own issues there. But if you're providing a quality service and the marketplace is not, why couldn't you charge more for what you do if you're delivering satisfaction and the other people aren't delivering satisfaction?
So we are seeing, with the companies that we're working with, we are just seeing so much reactive behaviour to time spent on dispute resolutions with unhappy customers.
Yep.
Instead of literally just, implementing ideas like what you've suggested, like the Lexus CDs. And so if companies can just see that and use that's a gold nugget really for the business to, it's such a simple thing to do.
Recognition is cheaper than bribery.
Yeah.
Just from a pure accounting point of view.
And it's cheaper to keep an existing customer than it is to gain a new one. And that's what we're seeing, all these companies spending thousands of dollars on their marketing to generate new business when they're not looking after the customers that they have.
Yeah.
And communicating with them with that human element, which is ultimately what people want to do. And, we see that with the telecommunication companies.
Yep.
You have an experience with them and literally you hang up the phone, you've already got a text message, what's your feedback, 1 to 10. You can say 1, and then what? They don't even ring you and pick up the phone to say, really sorry that we haven't met your expectation, how can we help?
I know.
You don't even hear from them.
But it's like a second insult, to do that. I remember I spent my life in hotels and they always have a server they want you to fill out. They've done nothing for me, but they want me to take time out of my day to improve their business. So either I don't do it or I fill it out wrong because I like to stuff up their research. Right? You know what I mean? To do that. But if ever, thank heavens, and say, for example, I've spoken in thousands of hotels, if one of them would send me a thank you afterwards or a CD with a link, thanks for being at the conference in our hotel, I would be more likely to feel positive about giving them genuine feedback that could help their business, but it very rarely works that way. So all I'm trying to do is pick holes in the stupidity. Everybody says it. Everybody who's been to marketing, it's cheaper to get keep an existing customer than to get a new customer. Everyone does it. But almost every industry out there rewards disloyalty. Almost every industry rewards disloyalty. I'm going to cancel my Foxtel. Oh, no, but if you're going to cancel, I'll give you $100 off. Or what if I didn't ring up?
Yeah.
Oh, so who gets rewarded? The disloyal customer, around there. Now, if the people in the boardroom would stop sitting on their island shipping champagne talking about how wonderful they are, right, and maybe understood that and put a little bit more into the building relationships with their existing clients and providing service, and maybe they could afford to employ more people so you don't wait an hour and a quarter on the phone waiting to have the phone answered there. Maybe they wouldn't need to bribe so many new customers because they wouldn't be losing the first ones out the back door. And they see that sometimes as acceptable churn, which I think is just ridiculous. They see, well, we know we're going to do that, so we have to go deeper with our discounting because we know we're going to lose some out the back end, and they accept that. But they only lose them out of neglect.
Yeah.
If they did the little stuff right, they wouldn't be losing them out the back door. And, I find, I remember I started doing this in the 80s. I remember saying, look, this will all be different in 10 years' time. No, it's no different. Technology changes, but people stay the same.
What a great message. Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. We're so grateful to have you on the show.
It is an absolute pleasure. Nice to reconnect, and I hope this is of value to the people out there.
Thanks very much for watching.
The Brag Effect is brought to you by Brag Reviews, the review management software that helps businesses improve their reputations, one review at a time. Check it out at bragreviews.com.